One of the most interesting arguments in your book also that didn't come through in your presentation is this kind of correlation between the precarious condition of the human male today and the rise of populism.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's not true everywhere and in a straightforward way, but overall the evidence is pretty clear that most of the populist movements we've seen in recent years have shown a gender gap. So populist leaders have attracted more male support than female support. That's true of Brexit, for example. So if only women voted, the UK would still be in the European Union. Donald Trump won with the biggest gender gap in recorded polling history. You're seeing it especially in places like Eastern Europe. Most dramatically, maybe South Korea, where just a massive gender gap among young voters especially, really swinging the election to avowedly anti-feminist new president. So this kind of, this question of gender is really playing into, I think, this kind of sense of the grievances that are fueling populism, for sure. But it's not just that it's men doing it. I think it's because sometimes it's women as well. It's not just by gender, it's about gender. And there is this sense among both men, more men, but also kind of some women, that mainstream institutions aren't on the side of men anymore, not taking men seriously. If anything, maybe they're toxic or whatever. And in skillful hands, that becomes a very powerful message. And I've seen a number of elections around the world swinging that way. As I say, South Korea really knocked me back a little bit. But Josh Hawley has a book coming out on, you could have him come talk. I'll debate him. His book is called Manhood, Rediscovering the Traditional Masculine Virtues, and it will be different to my book. Josh Hawley is many things, but stupid is not one of them. He knows what he's doing. And if you look, actually, among Republicans, like the majority of Republicans agree with the statement that in society today, too often men are punished just for acting like men, etc. And so there's just enough truth to these claims that mainstream institutions are not taking this stuff seriously to give those populists like Hawley some ground to stand on. And in a sense, what I'm trying to do is take the ground away. And I'll give you one more very anecdotal example, which is not directly related to populism, but it is a kind of the internet version of that, the manosphere that I referred to earlier. I was having an argument, it's a private argument with someone I would describe as a men's rights active, MRA guy. He wouldn't agree with that label. But I'd say alt-righty, very extreme, very anti-feminist guy last week. And he said, well, they don't care about the fact that men are committing suicide. I said, okay, fine, who's they? Right, they, the matrix. He said, CDC. I said, okay, fine. Really? He said, look at this link. He emailed me a link. The link was to the CDC page on disparities in suicide. I encourage you all to look at it. Suicide disparities. And it mentions the suicide disparities between urban and rural, veteran, non-veteran, LGBTQ, non-LGBTQ, native and indigenous populations, and white. Not men. Even though the single biggest risk factor for suicide, controlling for everything else, is being male. And so I'm on the phone with this guy, putting him on mute before cursing CDC. And I'm now going, what are you doing? You're doing their work for them. I'm trying to make these people sound crazy. And they don't sound as crazy as they should when you do stuff like that. Just to have a subsection of the CDC website that says men are 4 times more likely to kill themselves than women. Here's the charts, and you can find it. And that stuff happens all the time, where it's just that for understandable reasons, mainstream institutions are just not front and center saying, like the education stuff. Let's have a task force on that. Let's look at what's happening in higher education. Let's have some councils and commissions on university campuses, right? We're on a campus right now, and there's been a real flourishing of women's commissions on university campuses in recent years. I happen to be in favor of that. But given the gender gaps in both enrollment and completion and everything else, is it a stupid idea to have some men's commissions on college campuses? And the trouble is that on a lot of college campuses, merely saying that marks you out as one of them, right? And if that's the case, they're going to win. Because I'm not one of them. I just have data that suggests that you have a problem with enrolling and graduating your men. especially men of color. So maybe you should have an institutional fix for that as well. Not to get rid of the one for women, but just to do both. Because anybody that frames it as a zero-sum game, anybody that says it has to be one or the other, is like saying to a parent with a son and a daughter, which one are you going to love? And anybody that says in order to help boys and men we have to give up on our commitments to women and girls, or vice versa, is not our friend. And that zero-sum framing of this debate is one of the reasons that I've written about it, because I just see institutions failing to address it and therefore creating the space for other people to sweep in. So if we don't do it, who's gonna?